His flashlight shook in his grip as the massive shadow emerged from the trees. The bear was there, larger than he remembered, its silhouette made monstrous by the moonlight slicing through the canopy. It stood still, just beyond the backpack Daniel had found. Not charging, not snarling, just breathing. Heavy, slow, rhythmic, like a living ghost. Daniel slowly backed away, his instincts clashing. Run or stay perfectly still. But the bear didn't move. It lowered its head toward the half-buried backpack. Then something terrifying happened. It whimpered, a deep, trembling sound, not like the growl they had heard every night, but softer, grieving. The bear pawed at the pack gently, turned it over once, then pressed its snout against it. Another sound, half growl, half moan, escaped its chest. Daniel stood frozen as the bear lifted its head. Their eyes locked, and in that single moment, Daniel saw something impossible in the animal's eyes. Recognition. Not of him, but of something. Something ancient, broken, and unbearably sad. He didn't run. He couldn't. Instead, with shaking hands, he dropped the backpack on the ground, raised his hand slightly, and took one step back. The bear sniffed the air, gave one last low cry, and lumbered away into the trees, its massive form fading like smoke into the forest's darkness. Daniel ran home. He burst into the cabin, his boots soaked, his breath ragged. Ellie sat on the couch with Noah asleep beside her, curled into his blanket. Her face lit up with fear when she saw Daniel. "You're bleeding." Daniel looked down. A scratch across his wrist from a branch, but he didn't feel it. "I found it," he gasped. "The backpack. The girl's." Ellie's hand flew to her mouth. "And the bear. It was there. But it didn't attack. It mourned." "What?" Daniel leaned forward, speaking low so Noah wouldn't wake. "It knew the backpack. It sniffed it, whimpered, then left." "Like it recognized it," Ellie whispered. He nodded slowly. That night, Ellie barely slept. She kept turning over the same questions. Why was the bear fixated on their child? Why growl every night like clockwork? And if it wasn't hunting Noah, what was it trying to say? By morning, she had a theory. She dug through Noah's things, inspecting every toy, every book. Then she pulled out the teddy bear he had received a few weeks ago from a local donation drive. It was older, faded at the ears, one eye missing. But Noah loved it, called it Brownie. She brought it into the kitchen and began unpicking the stitching. Daniel watched in disbelief. "What are you doing?" "I just need to check something." Inside the old bear's stuffing, she found nothing unusual. But the scent, it was faint, but familiar. Ellie brought it to her nose. Shampoo. A specific brand, floral and mild, one she hadn't bought in years. She ran upstairs and opened the shampoo bottle they'd been using on Noah. The same scent. A leftover donation from a care box they'd picked up when money was tight. Suddenly, a strange possibility settled in her chest. "The teddy bear," she whispered. "That scent. What if... It's not just the place that's familiar to the bear. What if it's the smell?" Daniel stared at her. "You think it's recognizing Noah because of how he smells?" She nodded. "And how he looks. His face. The same shape. The same eyes." Ellie spent the day searching local databases, trying to track down any detail about the missing girl's family. She scoured every mention of the Haynes case and finally found an archived article with an overlooked name in the caption of a photo. Amelia Haynes, the girl's mother, a wildlife biologist. Amelia had worked at a local animal rescue and rewilding center until it closed a decade ago. Her specialty? Large mammals. One rescue in particular caught Ellie's attention. A bear cub, abandoned and near death, had been raised by Amelia until it could survive in the wild. A photo showed the little girl, Lily, hugging the young cub like a sibling. The caption read, "Reunited one last time before release." Ellie felt the pieces click into place. "That's it," she whispered. "That's her bear." She shared everything with Daniel that evening: the donated teddy bear, the shampoo scent, the donation box that likely carried items from a grieving parent, and, most importantly, the history. The bear wasn't stalking Noah. It wasn't trying to harm him. It was trying to reach something it had lost, the girl it had loved. "She must have died on that trail," Ellie said, voice trembling. "And maybe the bear was there. Maybe it saw. Maybe it remembers. Or maybe it never saw her again," Daniel replied. "Maybe it just waited." The idea was more heartbreaking than terrifying. Every night the bear came not to haunt, but to grieve, guided by scent, memory, and a child who reminded it of the one it had once loved. But the emotional toll wasn't done. Noah grew weaker. He wasn't eating. His temperature began to spike. He'd sit in bed and whisper things no child his age should know. "She misses me. She says she's sorry. She says don't be scared when I go with her." Ellie began sobbing every night after he fell asleep, terrified by what her child meant. Was it just dreams? A child's active mind feeding off their tension? Or something else? Some nights they caught him wandering, sleepwalking, always toward the window, always at 2:17 a.m. Then came the worst night yet. Noah woke up screaming. Not crying, screaming. When Daniel and Ellie burst into the room, they found him curled up under the windowsill, arms wrapped around Brownie, his tiny body shaking. "She's outside," he sobbed. "She's crying for me. She's lost again." Daniel looked through the window. There, just beyond the glass, was the bear. Not growling, not tapping, just watching. Motionless. Silent. Tears streamed down Ellie's face as she pulled Noah away from the window and clutched him to her chest. Daniel shut the curtain, trembling. Something had to give. This couldn't go on. The bear had memories, and now their son was carrying echoes of someone else's past. The next morning, as Noah slept in the living room wrapped in blankets, Daniel turned to Ellie. "We have to end this." She nodded. "But not with guns. Not with cages." Daniel looked at her. "Then how?" Ellie took a deep breath. "We find out exactly what happened to Amelia, to her daughter. We give that bear what it's looking for." Daniel blinked. "Closure." She nodded. "A grave. A memory. A goodbye. Something real. Something that tells it, the little girl it loved is gone." Daniel looked back at Noah, pale and feverish, still clinging to Brownie. "If we don't," he said, "we might lose our son to a ghost." The frost had melted into soft mud by morning. Daniel knelt outside their cabin, tracing the massive paw prints with a trembling hand. Each indentation was clear, methodical, leading away from the house, away from the window where the bear had stood nearly every night for weeks. But this morning, something had changed. The tracks weren't solitary. Beside them, half the size, uneven, were Noah's footprints. Panic surged. The boy was gone. Ellie emerged from the cabin barefoot, her face pale. "He's not in his bed." Daniel nodded grimly, already moving. "He walked into the woods." "No," she whispered. "She took him." They followed the tracks as fast as the terrain allowed, through underbrush, up ridges, across icy stream beds. Ellie called Noah's name, her voice cracking against the silent trees. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. Every crunch of a twig felt like it might be the last sound before tragedy struck. But then, just past a copse of cedar, they heard it, a deep growl, but not angry, wounded, followed by a faint sob. "Noah," Ellie choked. They reached the edge of a small hollow, half concealed by tangled roots and hanging moss, a natural den. Inside, in the dim light filtering through cracks in the bark above, was the bear, curled into the earth, trembling, its great head low, chest rising and falling erratically, and in front of it, Noah. The child stood barefoot in the cold mud, unafraid. one small hand outstretched, resting gently on the bear's thick fur. "He's okay," Ellie breathed, nearly collapsing. The bear wasn't hurting him. It was grieving, in shuddering gasps, not roars, not a monster, a mother in mourning. Daniel eased forward, keeping low. Ellie followed, her steps careful. The bear lifted its head weakly, watching them, but made no move to defend or retreat. Then they saw what lay inside the den. A few old, matted blankets, a child's shoe, tiny, pink, a rusted tin lunchbox with stickers long faded by time, and a water-damaged photograph, half buried in dirt. Daniel reached for it. In the picture, a woman, her arm wrapped around a little girl in overalls. And between them, barely a cub, was the same bear, smaller than, pressed tightly against the child's chest. Amelia, Lily, and the bear. Ellie clutched her mouth, tears streaming. The truth hit them both with staggering force. This was where Lily had once played, where she had hugged her best friend, where her scent had lingered. The bear had returned to it every night, chasing echoes. Noah knelt beside the bear now and removed his own teddy from under his arm. "Here," he said softly, placing it between the bear's paws. "You can have her back." Silence. Then the bear lowered its head. It nudged the teddy with its snout, gently, as if greeting an old friend. A low, long sound escaped its throat, not a growl, not a cry. A sigh, the sigh of something ancient and exhausted, the sigh of letting go. Ellie stepped forward, her hand trembling as she reached toward the bear. She touched its fur. Warm. It didn't flinch. Its eyes slowly closed, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not language, not thought, but understanding. She gathered Noah in her arms, and for the first time in weeks, he relaxed. His fever faded like mist. His breath evened. His tiny fingers curled into her sweater, and he fell asleep, peacefully. They sat in silence until dusk. The bear never moved again. Not when Daniel placed the photo gently atop the teddy bear. Not when Ellie whispered, "We're sorry." Not when they finally stood and walked back through the forest, their son cradled between them. The bear was never seen again. In the days that followed, rangers combed the woods, responding to the miller's urgent calls. They found the den, but it was empty. Only the teddy bear remained, nestled in the dirt beside the photograph. The blankets had been stirred, the scent of bear lingering faintly, but the great creature was gone. Some believed it had wandered deeper into the wilderness. Others believed it had laid down beside its memories and quietly passed. Mrs. Alder visited the cabin not long after. When Ellie shared everything, the old woman nodded solemnly. "She finally found her cub in the boy," she said, placing a hand over Ellie's, and let go. Noah never spoke of the bear again, but something in him changed. His eyes carried a quiet wisdom. His drawings no longer featured monsters or shadows, but forests filled with stars, and a single, peaceful creature resting beneath a tree. His nightmares vanished. He began smiling again. The family eventually placed a small stone marker at the den's entrance. On it they carved, "For Lily and her guardian." A girl lost too soon, and the bear who never stopped looking for her. And every now and then, as snow dusts the trees and the wind whispers through the pines, Ellie swears she hears something just beyond the cabin walls. A sigh, not of sadness, but of peace.